groups. I'm sure there is one that is close to you that you're familiar with. And I'd just like to share some of the top reasons for search and rescue. And we're here to talk about number one. So you all know what that is. So number one, injury. And I won't steal any of Doug's thunder, so we'll let him share all of that. Number two, getting lost and disoriented. That's the second most common reason people phone for help. They're not sure where to go. They can't navigate very efficiently, not reading a map effectively, lost and disoriented. The third one, exceeding their abilities. We can get through the season and we can build strength and experience and adventures, and we can get quite confident in what we're doing. And at times we can all exceed our abilities. I have a few stitches, remnants on my arm of exceeding my abilities, let me tell you. And it usually happens in September when I'm feeling a little bit too confident on my mountain bike. It's true. That's when most of my falls happen. So I can attest to that. Before I introduce Doug, I'd like to say we do have a couple of prizes to give away this evening, and it's really great for those of you who want to stick around all the way to the end. We'll have a lot to share today. And one of the prizes is a lucky winner will be winning a brand new Zoleo satellite communicator, value $269, which includes a free activation and 1 month free, which is a value $125. Great, great prize. And the next person, second winner, will be winning a just released second edition of 105 Hikes in and around southwestern British Columbia by Stephen Hugh. An awesome book. First one was great. Second one's just as great. And it'll help you with your adventures this summer and everywhere in between. Really grateful to have you tonight. And we're really grateful to have Doug Pope from North Shore Rescue. He is a long-time and highly respected member of North Shore Rescue, one of Canada's busiest search and rescue groups. With over 20 years of experience, he's known for his steady leadership, technical rescue skills, and deep knowledge of the North Shore's challenging terrain, which is very easily accessible, isn't it? Doug has responded to countless rescues and is widely recognized for keeping teams focused and safe under pressure. He is also a strong advocate for public safety and prevention, regularly supporting outreach efforts to help outdoor enthusiasts stay safe and prepared. Doug's a lifelong North Shore resident since he was 7. He possesses extensive knowledge of the region's trails, rivers, and mountains. Doug's local expertise and unwavering commitment reflect the heart of volunteer search and rescue in British Columbia. I'd like to welcome Doug to our virtual stage. Thank you for your time in preparing for this, Doug, and what you've got to share with us this evening. The stage is yours, and we can't wait to hear what you've got to say. Thanks again.
Well, thank you, Sandra, and to Scott for that introduction. I'm really pleased to be here. And, you're saying I know the North Shore trails well. I've been hiking them since I was 7. And a short story of why I joined. One of the reasons I joined the team was I heard they had really good team maps, and they knew with all these secret trails on them. So I wanted to see these secret trails and see if they had more than I had been exploring most of my life. But turned out it was a bit ironic, because one of the first things, my first big jobs on the team, Tim Jones took me aside and said, everybody needs a niche on the team. And I think yours could be mapping the trails because you know them so well. So one of my first jobs was GPSing all the trails on the North Shore and creating a new team maps for us. So it was kind of ironic. I did get to know the trails even better than I had before, but I had to do all the work.
Did you find some secret ones?
I did. And,
I
did. And some of them we kept secret, and some have been published on the internet.
Were some of them wandering onto top property you weren't supposed to wander onto?
And some got shared on the internet by mistake, not by me, but by someone else. So I'll just, I have a presentation that I'll key up here. How's that? People see that? Okay.
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay.
You'll have to hit the share button in the Zoom application.
Yeah. Okay.
There we go. We're starting to think.
Okay, and I'll start the slideshow. How's that?
Not quite at the slide. There we go. Bingo.
Okay, bingo. So I was going to ask the audience what they thought was the most prevalent reason for calling out search and rescue, but I think the cat's out of the bag on that. But just to mention that, when you talk to people, what gets the most press in my experience, and that is like risk of avalanche, risk of getting buried in an avalanche, or
People skiing
these
out of bounds.
people skiing out of bounds, or what else is there? There's people being lost either in the winter or the summer for days on end, and we're going to look for them, and some of them succumb to exposure. But it's more the simple things that people get in trouble for, and that's the slips, trips, and falls. And it is a majority of calls in BC and for our North Shore Rescue team. So we're going to talk tonight about some examples. I have some examples, recent examples from our team, some very tragic events. They can be significant to fatalities, through to even smaller, like just a twisted ankle can be very involved event when it's far in the backcountry and it's bad weather, and we've got to bring helicopters and medical personnel out there. So it's a really good subject to talk about, and I think a lot of the issues are preventable. So it's a great thing to talk about, and I'm glad we have a big audience tonight to discuss it with us. So yeah, as I said, it's most frequent reason, and the injuries are minor to fatalities. And it involves significant loss, in that we've had fatalities just this year, and lots in the past in my experience. And the resources involved in responding to these calls aren't insignificant. And in many cases, they're avoidable. And I'll give you some of my tips and opinions on how people can reduce their risk as far as being a North Shore Rescue customer in the future. So here's the first example. It's from January of this year. 2 hikers suffer broken bones on the same slippery section of West Vancouver Trail. So this was Mount Hollyburn, and both of these calls were within 2 days of each other. I attended in the field on the first one, and the second one was just the following Monday after the Saturday call. And they both involved hikers going up the public trail from the Nordic hiking area in Hollyburn. And both of them, I think, had reasonable footwear, in the sense like they had kind of hiking boots, snow boots, but it was on the descent. And it's relatively easy to ascend slippery conditions, but when you start trying to descend on slippery snow, that's when you can get into trouble. And that's what happened with both these. The first one was a middle-aged woman who was, she wasn't bum sliding on the snow, but that's where she ended up. She ended up on her butt sliding on the snow and couldn't self-arrest, and she stuck her foot down and then hit a tree and broke her ankle severely. One of the most severe ankle fractures I've seen. And then the second call was very similar, with a middle-aged man. And so that's a frequent call in winter, falling on snow and ice, both in winter, I should say, and spring, because when I say winter, I mean winter conditions in the mountains, and we're just ending winter conditions in the mountains now on the North Shore, so that it really takes you up until June, these winter conditions, when you gotta be safe traveling on snow.
And the later you
Doug,
go
can
in
I
the
ask for-
season, the later
Yeah,
you
go
go in
ahead.
the season, it tends to have more freeze, melt, freeze, melt, which means it's getting more and more icy as time goes on, right? You
For
mentioned
sure,
that
Scott.
they had hiking boots. Did they have any traction devices?
No, and that was the missing link in both these calls. Just microspikes would have been enough in these calls. It wasn't that icy. We responded as a team, all in microspikes and ice axes. Yeah, it's not that difficult, and it's not expensive to provide yourself with some microspikes. And to me, they're one of the best new
Oh yeah.
tools that have come out in the last 10 years for for hiking. I carry microspikes almost all the time, and then I'll add
Yep.
crampons and snowshoes as needed. But I've always got microspikes up until just now. I might start taking them out of my rescue pack.
I
But I've
literally leave
had
them in my pack year round. I just like
oh yeah,
they're relatively light. I use the Catula brand, the actual
me
Catula
too.
microspikes.
Yeah,
And the other thing is they last forever. Like years ago, when I
Mhm.
first got one, I got a Yak Trax, I think it was, and it may have been an old version, and I'm
me
sure they've
too.
gotten better. But they lasted like one hike, and then they snapped, right? The Catula ones I had for 12 years before I had one finally give up the ghost. And even when it gave up the ghost, I could still use it the rest of that hike out. It was still good enough to get me through to the end of the hike, and then I finally replaced it. Like that, they're
Yeah,
a really good investment for. I think at the time it was $70, probably now $90.
yeah.
But for 12 years, that's great.
I've got photo of what of the Catula ones later on in the presentation. So if people haven't seen them yet, yeah, they're highly recommended. I even lend them out. I was hiking Seymour a few months ago, and a couple approached me in the parking lots asking if Dog Mountain was safe. And
Mm,
I automatically looked down. I look at their feet, and they both had inappropriate footwear, but it was a pretty
not for
good
you.
day. And I was like, not for you. And they were so disappointed. But you know what I did? I went into our rescue base and I got them out some microspikes. And I said, with these, I think you can do it safely, but you got to bring them back to me at my house after your call. And so it was a bit of um, they were tourists. So it's a bit of, BC hospitality and some preventative thing because I didn't want to come out on a rescue later on in the day.
I think it was an ulterior motive. You didn't
Yeah,
want to come
maybe.
back out later. Actually, it was
Yeah,
very kind
maybe.
of you. Before you move on, Doug, can you clarify for those that might not know, can you define what self-arrest means?
Yeah, so being able to stop yourself once you start to slip on snow is the most important thing, right? And it's amazing how fast you can get going. Like if you're on a steep slope in hard snow or ice, you've really only got a second or two to stop yourself, even if you have the proper tools,
Yeah.
because you just get going so fast, so quickly. So you've got to be trained in self-arresting, and that's stopping your fall, your sliding. And an ice axe is the best tool for that. And it's not hard to train. It's kind of fun. Our team does it every year. We train on Dinky Peak right near the Seymour parking lot there, and find a slope that doesn't have severe consequences if you're not successful in severe in self-arresting. And it's getting that ice pick in the ground quickly with your chest weight over it to self-arrest and practice falling in different orientations of your body. There's other ways to self-arrest, like even using a ski pole if you're desperate, grabbing it right close to the basket and the pointy end and digging that in with hard weight on it if you don't have an ice axe. But an ice axe is a good tool. And people that are interested in traveling in snow, crampons and ice axe when the snow's hard is the funnest way to travel on the North Shore Mountains, in my opinion. It's just you can go
Mhm.
quickly and you feel like Spider-Man on those slopes, and you can do it safely if you're experienced at it.
I did want
Thank
to
you.
also, there was one other part that you brought up on that last one. You got a lot of good points in there. One was it's easier to go up than it is to go down. I think we really need to put a star on that one. It applies at any season because as you're going up, if you fall, the consequences are you're already going, your fall will be against your momentum. So it'll actually slow you down because you're going up and you fall, you are going in the direction of up. You're now
It's a
going
good
down.
point.
So you're actually going against momentum. If you're coming down and you fall, you are adding to your momentum. So now all of a sudden the fall can be much bigger when you're going down. As well, when you're going up and you fall like this. When you're going down and you'll fall like that much more in order to get all the way down, right? Because if the slope is like this, you only have to fall this much when you're going up. When you're going down, you have to fall all the way that down. So you
Yeah,
can, consequences are so much more when you're going down than when you're going up.
for sure. A good point. I have a video. So some of the consequences, not only if you get injured, is us coming to try and extract you, and that can be very involved. This particular Hollyburn example, the first one with the woman, was at night, and we ended up having to stretcher her out, and so this is us stretchering her out with a toboggan stretcher. So you can see she's quite well packaged there. She was in a significant pain. She was saying that her pain was in the 8 to 9 when we weren't moving her. So you can imagine what it was like when we were having to jostle her. So it's stabilizing her injury, getting her packaged well, but it's still a painful ride down no matter what we do. And I'll show you a few photos of what we use to stabilize lower limb injuries, etc. So I'll try and skip that. And then the second one, I have a photo. We used a different stretcher. This is a Cascade stretcher, a little more skookum stretcher for this individual. And we can again slide this on the snow. And new to our repertoire is a side-by-side that's shown there with tracks. We can have it as wheels in the summer, and then we've got snow tracks, so we don't have to rely so much on snow machines that we use through Cypress Nordic or our own. They're good for getting one person in at a time, but this is a lot better. We can fit more people, and we can fit a stretcher on it. So this gentleman got a stretcher ride out from Hollyburn after his ankle injury on Hollyburn last January. Then moving on to another significant time for our team and these individuals, April. So April was some good weather. You can see just in the clip of that photo that it was a pretty nice days in April. It kind of warmed up, but it was still that season where we're getting freezing in the mountains, the North Shore Mountains at night. So that snow was thawing in the good weather in the afternoon, and then freezing, and it was getting really icy. And we had this situation in behind, people call it Cypress Mountain, but really it's Cypress Resorts. And then Mount Strachan is the main mountain where these rescues were. And in behind, there's a gully called Christmas Gully. And it's an avalanche chute that extreme skiers like to try and ski, but you have to pick the right conditions. And so we had 4 rescues in a matter of, I think it was 2 days. Yeah, it says in the highlight in the article there, 2 days, and one very significant one where the person is still trying to recover from. And so this is what it looked like when we went to rescue. So this is at the top of Skychair. Those of you that know Cypress Resorts, you go up the top of Skychair, and if you make a bad decision, you go under the rope that they don't go out under, and then you can look down into Christmas gullies in behind, and you can see one of our rescuers in the trees there. But there's a bit of light snow you can see there on the top, but the rest of it is really hard ice underneath. And so we had 4 people slip and get injured, 3 all in one day in that area because it was so treacherous.
And the interesting thing about that for me, Doug, is even when it softens up, it's really not that great skiing because you're slush skiing.
Yeah, exactly. It is. It's not good skiing, and it's not a good place to be. I don't like being there other than in crampons. I wouldn't want to be on skis. You couldn't pay me to be on skis back there. But yeah, and you can see this is one of the rescues on that first day. And you can see the type of slope they're on. And if you're not prepared with crampons and ice axe, you're going to fall and hit things like trees and rock outcroppings, unfortunately. This is the Christmas Gully proper. You're looking kind of, maybe looking eastward up towards the summit of Mount Strachan. This is kind of where everybody ends up. guy chairs up on the upper right of the photo, quite far up, quite a ways up. So this individual fell all the way down, and that's probably a 300 meter elevation slide through trees and rocks. So you can see if you slide that far out of control, you're gonna get injured from hitting stuff, and that's what happened. The types of rescues we do when we have good weather like that is typically long line or hoist. And in this case, we use both tools on both days. We used long line, and so that's a fixed line beneath the helicopter. Typically, it's 150, 200-foot line. It's attached and is fixed to the helicopter. That's Talon Helicopters, our main provider for helicopter rescue. And so we use that. And then I have a video of the hoist now that we use with Talon, and that's a winch, wire winch hoist that we can hoist into the Delphine helicopter, which we can also fly at night. So this is the Delphine also doing one of the rescues in Christmas Gully. So you can see them kind of just getting winched up into the helicopter. The rescuer and the subject will come right up into the helicopter. With the long line, they stay below the helicopter, and we lower them typically at Cypress parking lot or one of our rescue bases. But that Delphine, there's two of them now that Talon has increased our ability in the sense that we can winch people right in. We can fly at night now, and we're providing services all through BC as a pilot program with the NBC.
In fact, you came and helped us out with a night extraction about a week ago. Thank you very much on behalf of Coquitlam Search and Rescue.
Yeah, and so we're helping out our sister teams, which is great, and I'm sure that one day Coquitlam will be doing the same thing on their own. So another icy slope one. So it's not just ice and snow, but so far this year, obviously, it's been lots of slips and falls and snow. But this was another unfortunate one that I did attend for a 28-year-old female that died on Mount Seymour, and this was really tragic. And it's the same kind of scenario, slipping on snow without proper equipment. And this group of women went in on a nice sunny day in April up to the subsummit of Pump Peak. There's a little subsummit they were camping on just north of Pump Peak near Mount Seymour, and they went in on a beautiful sunny day. The snow was soft, so the light hikers and hiking boots they were wearing were adequate for the conditions, because you're sinking in and you can get purchase in the snow. And then so they felt comfortable in going in, and they camped on this summit, which when you get up there, it's a broad summit. It's just a gentle slope at first, so it looks so easy and pristine. And then, like tragedy is just lurking not too far, and that's what happened. And so the photo on the left was when I got up to the summit. We were fogged in, so it was really good weather, but Seymour can fog in at any time, any season. I've had pea soup fog, as most people have gone up there. The most Seymour can do it as better than any mountain on the North Shore. And so even with good conditions, we had quite thick fog. We went up to the summit, and so that's a kind of idea of looking at the terrain. It looks pretty innocuous, the terrain, but what they camped overnight, and then when they woke up early in the morning, they wanted to take some photos of the morning, even though it wasn't great views, and the snow had turned hard ice. And so this woman went to take some photos, dropped her phone, went a little further along in the slope to try and get her phone, and then slid a long way down, and unfortunately succumbed to her injuries, even though we had a lot of medical expertise there trying to save her. But again, it's tragic in that, just like having there's me in the middle photo with my rescue pack, a helmet, an ice axe, and I had light crampons, and I felt more than safe traversing that slope and going down it. You can travel well if you have the right equipment and are experienced with it. But if you don't use the right equipment, then you can get into some real trouble. And then just the right photo is just coming out with her companion, hiking them out. And again, the snow had softened up by then, so hiking boots and a pole were enough to get out. It was just that few-hour period in the morning when the snow was hard that led to the accident.
Doug,
It's
just to
interesting
your
see-
examples of
Yeah,
your examples of Cypress, and then this one, from our experiences, we know that they're all easily accessible, right? And relatively. And what are your thoughts on that sense of security that enthusiasts get because it is so accessible? You know, there's the audience is looking at three people here tonight. You, Scott, and I, who are experienced and know that easy access bodes well for us. We're trained,
Yeah.
we're experienced, we have those skills under our belt. And some enthusiasts are just a little bit more unaware. Do you think that there's a big false sense of security because the access is so easy?
I really think it's part of it. You can take a bus to the top of Lynn Valley, one bus for me. You get off at the top of Lynn Valley Road and Dempsey there, and then you're in wilderness. And wilderness, the North Shore Wilderness is spectacular. I've been going there all my life, and I'm not tired of it. But it's not forgiving, and it doesn't care if you're experienced or not. It'll find a way that if you're not ready, to cause you problems. And so with that, you're right. You can take a 5-minute walk from that bus stop, and then you're in Lynn Headwaters Park, and you lost cell reception. So
Yeah.
that's a big thing. If you don't have a satellite communication device with you, you've now been cut off, and that may be one of your main safety lines, is relying on being able to call for help. But you don't have that if you're just relying on your cell phone 5 minutes from the bus stop. And so, that Headwaters Trail that goes up, and if you continue to Haynes Valley, it's spectacular long summer hike. I'd say that's one of our most dangerous hikes on the North Shore, and it's almost ironic in that it's not the most dangerous terrain. It's long. If you're fit and relatively experienced, it's not that difficult. But it's the fact that it's so remote and it has no cell reception has caused so many people to get into trouble with long searches and/or fatalities. We have at least one individual we still haven't found that was doing the Haynes Valley with just a cell phone. So
Yeah.
it's pretty tragic.
It is. I fully agree. And that is another example of a North Shore trail that's easily accessible, and that one by transit. You're right. And our data shows that we collect, you all collect this, all 78 groups. It's one of the busiest trails for search and rescue in the country, is the Haynes Valley. And we actually have a trail specific safety video for that. We'll plop it in the chat in case anyone's thinking about going when it's open. So Metro Vancouver will make that assessment when it is, and they'll let everybody know it's currently closed. And once it's safe to do so, they do open it up. That window's a small one.
Yeah.
But one that we noted with our data in BC that had some of the highest search and rescue call volume. And so we'll put that trail video in there. And if any other trails come up, we'll plop them in there too. Thanks.
Yeah,
Thanks,
and
Doug.
maybe ones where we've had the most fatalities as well. So,
Yeah.
people don't think about that when they think about Haynes Valley, that they could get that badly in trouble, but it can happen. And having adequate communication and all the other 10 essentials is really important. Moving on. Go ahead, Scott.
No, I was just going to say that the I've found personally that the Seymour Winter Trail can actually be at least closer to the beginning when you're going up alongside um, the runs, can actually be one of the icier trails in the entire
Yeah.
North Shore. And I cringe when I see loads and loads and loads of people with inappropriate footwear attempting to get up and down on icy things. I was wondering if you had a piece of advice. You said at one point in time someone was passing and they asked you a question, and you said, "Hey, yeah, I'll loan you a set of microspikes." Uh, if you are out on the trail and you see and you're coming back down off the trail and you know the conditions are getting worse as they go up, and you spot someone who is clearly horribly underprepared, uh, do you approach them? And if so, how do you talk with them about that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I can't say I always do it because some days you wouldn't get down the mountain and you can get a negative response back sometimes. So it's just what you're up for. I think if you approach it in a friendly way and just, like your hikers have some camaraderie and, letting people know what the conditions are like. I appreciate that when I'm on my way up and someone's coming down. I often ask them, like, what's the summit like? Is there snow still? Or, and so asking people on their way down is great. And approaching people and just letting them know, say, hey, it was really slippery on top. Do you have microspikes with you? And if they say no, yeah, I'd say you might want to think of a lower hike like Dog Mountain. So I've done that, and usually I get a positive response. So I think it's important for us as a hiking community to be doing that. And I regularly do it, but find I get the best response if I try and do it in a friendly way, not a teacher or condescending way.
I
Sandra,
think
what's your
you
take on
both,
it?
yeah, I have a few points. I think both Scott and you, Doug, have a feather in your cap because you can say you are with Search and Rescue, and I bet you people listen. And that's
Yeah.
awesome. And that you're doing that on your own time. Super grateful for that. For, others that aren't with a Search and Rescue group or that are just a member of that hiking community that is huge in the province of BC. Outdoor recreation in general. I know I'm a avid mountain biker, and it's a chatty group, right? You're always saying something to somebody when you're stopping for a break or when you see them. And I think it ties right back to what we're here to do with BC Adventure Smart, is to increase awareness amongst enthusiasts to reduce impact on SAR. But we're all here, enthusiasts included, to add to that safety culture in British Columbia. And to me, that safety culture is that conversation. It's that engagement. It's you, Doug, saying, hey, my microspikes came in handy, or Scott saying, sunsets in 45 and you're just going up, maybe only go up to such a point. That conversation to me
Yeah.
is a part of the community. It's a part of the provincial safety culture. It's a part of who we are as a province, I think, as educators, for one, as search and rescue, two, us as an entity for reliable outdoor resources, but also everyday hiker, everyday outdoor enthusiast can have this conversation. And I know we encourage this when we deliver our Survive Outside program and when we're at trailheads and working with SAR like yourselves, both of you, is engaging with each other. And I think that takes all of us to do that, right? It's not just me here as executive director at BC Adventure Smart. It's not just Scott at Coquitlam or you at NSR. It's all of us as a team, and that team includes everyone who's here tonight as a participant, and your friends and family that you hike with and spend time with. So I think that conversation is key.
For sure. Moving on, I've got a little more here. Just another, this is an older call that I was involved in, again, on top of Mount Hollyburn, and again, uh, fractured ankle from someone descending with crampons, but they slipped. Oh no, they were butt sliding on purpose to get down quickly, but they didn't take the crampons off. So just a note, crampons and even microspikes, if you're gonna butt slide, have some way to self-arrest, like at least a pole and a ice axe is better. But also, you don't want to be doing it with crampons because you can stick your foot in the ground as you're going down and severely injure your ankle, and that's what happened. But another way we can get people up the mountain quickly is just landing on, or even just hovering above the terrain. The pilot will hover and we can load a subject, and that's us loading a patient, not in a stretcher or anything, just kind of carrying them as a group and putting him in the seat of the helicopter once his foot was splintered. So that's another way we get people out quickly, that kind of injury.
On behalf of the person who's going to be going up that trail that you're bum sliding down, please don't bum slide down the main part of the trail. Go off to the side, because otherwise you're just making it an ice chute, which makes it hard for other people to go up.
Good point. And so kind of moving more on to more summer conditions, and we still get a lot of slips, trips, and falls during the summer. And so these relatively innocuous but very popular trails are our frequent flyers for rescuing people. And the most prevalent injury that we need to go out for is a twisted ankle, and it's St. Mark's Summit on the left. You start from Cypress Bowl area, and then you're on the Howe Sound Crest Trail, the St. Mark's Summit, and you can get the famous Instagram photo overlooking Howe Sound there, and it's a very popular hike now. And that's probably, you know, that's not a dangerous hike per se, but it's probably the one we go to the most overall in a year, and that's because of people twisting ankles. And then, you know, it's not an easy rescue for us, in the sense that it's a far out, so it's typically a helicopter rescue like you saw in the snowy conditions. And then the other one is Dog Mountain, and similar. It's not a big elevation gain. It's pretty just rolling, and it's not a dangerous trail, but it's a very frequent call out for us, the Dog Mountain. So what do these two trails have in common that draw us there? Well, maybe this is a couple of years ago, just September 5th, we had 3 calls on Dog Mountain, and they were ankle injury was the first one, fell down 10 meters, numerous injuries was the second. The third report was again a fall and a head injury. So significant injuries in September. There's no snow then. It would have just been a slip in on the terrain, and it's really the kind of terrain, I think, and inappropriate footwear that are going to these calls. So the photo on the left is Dog Mountain Trail, and we're actually in the process of stretchering an individual out on the Dog Mountain Trail. So the stretcher is behind us, and we're some of the I think it's the subject group that's with them, and it's out ahead there. That's my teammate Athena in the foreground. And so it shows you the type of terrain that we've got to carry a stretcher on, but also the type of terrain that people are having to navigate, where they think it might be an easy trail, but it's not an easy trail. It's rooty. It's not muddy, but it's rooty and slippery on rocks. And if you're not wearing proper footwear, there's a good chance you can twist an ankle on a trail like that.
Thanks for sharing these pictures, Doug, because I think, again, here's another example of a really accessible trail, popular trail. As far as a crow flies, not too far, great view. You know, you could get there and back in a reasonable amount of time, but the trail surface really is indicating here by your pictures what it's really like. I'm familiar with that. Scott is, you are, and maybe not everyone is. So thanks. I just wanted to thank you for showing the level of rootiness to this trail surface. And I remember just a quick little example. I remember hiking a few years ago with some friends. I would queue up some hikes all summer. It was just a girls group, and off we went. And sometimes people would bring other friends. It was awesome. We went out to Dog Mountain. We thought, okay, early summer, this is one of our hikes as we graduate to harder and longer. She was baffled at how much mental her words, how much mental concentration she had to have to place one foot in front of another for that whole hike. Obviously, maybe she
Yeah.
admitted she wasn't an avid hiker, and I got that
Mm.
right out of the gate. But she couldn't believe how much effort it took for her mentally to think, where am I going to place my foot? And how am I going to place my foot? And how am I going to balance? Like, I'm really glad she shared it, because it for someone who maybe does it naturally, and out of habit, like some of us, for someone who's new to that, either activity or someone invited them to go along, there's many different types of hikers out there, and not everyone's aware of what it
Yeah.
takes to hike something that's accessible, doesn't take too long. They know they're going to get a great view. They see others that have gone up, and yet look at the trail surface.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So you need to be prepared, and what you need sturdy footwear. So that ranges from full-on hiking boots with ankle support, and that's my recommendation. That's my go-to, even summer
Same.
hiking, through to if you're experienced, you have very sturdy, strong ankles and good balance. People will even run a trail like this on Trail Runner, but that's not for the average person. And so hiking boots and at least some kind of sturdy shoe with ankle support is what you need. And that's not what you see when you hike these trails. They're very popular with inexperienced and tourists and the like. So you'll see so many, and 90% of the customers that I see for call outs are wearing inappropriate footwear when they need our help. So that's the key thing. And then the second point I wanted to make was the other side of it, and it goes to the trail condition. So these trails are so well hiked. I think they deserve better attention and better management by the landowners that these are on. And that's another side of North Shore Rescue. And we work with our landowners, trying to share information about what we're seeing, and then working with them and marking trails, and then advocating for improvement of these trails. Metro Vancouver is the one for Dog Mountain, and BC Parks is the one for St. Mark's Trail. And both are working on these trails actively each summer, but not quickly enough for us hikers and for me as having to deal with things. So we're always kind of trying to encourage them to do more to improve trail surface and maybe signage to let people know of what they're in for, because it's not all easy hiking like they might expect from a trail like Dog Mountain. That I'm not sure what they're rated for, say, on all trails, but I wouldn't be surprised if they rated easy, but it doesn't look easy to me in these photos.
And I'll back that too and second it, because I know that we work closely with those land managers too, like you just mentioned, Doug, and you guys are on the ground and doing some assessment and communication probably quite regularly. And so are we here at BC Adventure Smart. So we're using our search and rescue data that shows us where those high call volume trails are, which you mentioned some, and so did I. And then we work with those land managers and partners. Partners are search and rescue, specifically like NSR, Coquitlam, and the likes. Metro Vancouver, Parks Canada, BC Parks, and literally create product, content, outdoor education on trail specific safety videos is a really good example. We've just plumped a few in the chat there. You can link to all of them actually. And that allows us to really see how we can better these areas. Like Doug just said, it could be signage, it could be a ground search and rescue prevention project that I do some work with volunteers. It could be literally putting up signs in certain areas that are high trafficked, that are decision-making points, that can really remind people or introduce them to the 3 Ts, a QR code to the Trip Plan app. I'll put in a link in there and show a little bit about some signage that we've put in. But just to back what you said again, Doug, that partnership between affiliates and industry, responders, educators, the program BC SARA is ongoing, and we're all in it together.
For sure.
And one of the important points is I want everyone to recognize we want people to use these front country trails.
For sure.
We like it. The other option is that they go into slack country, or they go into the deep back country, where there is much less fewer people around if they do get in trouble. there's much less chance of getting in there. There's much greater search and territory to look at if we're looking for them. So we want people to use these, especially the people who are least experienced, because that's how you get experience.
Yeah,
You get experience by doing more, but we have to
yeah,
have those front country trails be in a condition that's worthy enough that they can actually get that experience and
yeah.
then graduate to bigger trails.
And they're getting so much use. It's a good investment for government. I'm a strong advocate for trails in general, just because it's such a good recreation and exercise, and it's a good bang for your buck if you're a land manager and trying to provide some recreation. It's a lot less expensive than a rec center or something like that to build for people as exercise. Just two more examples. North Face Chains. That's the north face of Goat Mountain, in between Goat and Crown Mountain or Crown Pass. So if you going to Crown, you got to climb down that first and then back up. Or if you're coming out of Haynes Valley, you climb up that towards Grouse. So it's not insignificant, the type of terrain you got to traverse. And then the other picture is in the headwaters, and that headwaters trail, it can be very rough and rooty in sections, and we get a lot of twisted ankles. We did a lower leg injury just last weekend out by Norvan Falls, and that was a helicopter again rescue. Just wanted to show we're not always using helicopter, and we're not able always just to pull them on a stretcher in the snow. This is in summer where it's quite involved to stretcher someone out. I think this is Dog Mountain again, and as you can see, it's just the snow's kind of almost gone. So a stretcher carry is very involved for our team, and it can be dangerous as far as, that kind of navigating that type of terrain with that many people across that width of the trail. Our team members can get injured. It's not comfortable for the subject, so it's a pretty involved when we got to stretcher somebody out, but we do that a lot with these types of injuries. What do we do with the injury? Typically, we stabilize and then transport. So the best ways to stabilize an ankle injury, this is we call it the moon boat. It's an air cast. It's a great invention where we can just kind of put an ankle injury in there. It stabilizes it quick. We pump it up with air to secure the foot in there. And sometimes people can even walk, say, to a helicopter extraction point, or at least they're a lot more comfortable. And then the middle picture is a vacuum splint, and we have these where if you have a femur break or something involved with your knee, you want to splint the whole leg. These are very quick. By taking the air out rather than putting it in, you take the air out of the splint. It can become very stable and hard. And we would secure the good leg to that splint, kind of wrap them together and put them in a stretcher, and that can be quite secure and comfortable for the injured party. And then on the right, it's basic. We all carry these SAM splints in our packs. These are splints that are good for splinting ankle injuries and lower leg injuries as well. So we use all three of these in different cases.
I've never seen a person that has that many SAM splints on them. I feel sorry
Yeah.
for him. That's horrible.
Yeah, that's a lot. Wonder what's wrong with them.
And he's still mobile, which is the amazing thing. Holy
Maybe
crap.
that's a result
How
of
does
Dog
he
Mountain.
do that?
Maybe that's a Dog Mountain result.
How does he do that? How does he still walk around? And then the great tool I like is pain management, because it's someone in a lot of pain. It's bad, obviously, for the person, but it's also bad for the rescuer. Imagine trying to splint somebody's leg when they're screaming in pain. We don't like to hurt people, and having some form of pain management. It used to be, I couldn't wait for Tim Jones to fly in the helicopter and administer some morphine to a broken femur patient, but now we have more portable and easier administered things like Penthrox is a pain thing that we have licensed people on our team that can provide it to patients where you just inhale it as needed. So it reduces the stress on the patient and on the rescuers and makes them more comfortable on the way out. So that's typically, we're not doing significant treatment, although we can, and we have a whole suite of our advanced medical providers, about 10 doctors on our team that provide very good medical care in the field. But with lower leg injuries, typically it's not a significant amount of that. It's kind of stabilize, manage pain, and then get them out as quickly as possible to the hospital. Preventing the injury. How are we doing for time, Scott? I've got just a couple slides left.
We're happy to go a little bit longer. If you're happy to go a little bit longer,
Sure.
we can add 10 minutes after when you're done there. We'll have a few questions and then we'll go into our giveaways.
Sure, that sounds good. I just got a couple more. So for preventing the injury, so adequate footwear for these lower leg injuries is key, right? So I talked about it before. Sturdy hiking boots like that, I wear these all season long. They're my go-to in the backcountry. And then for traveling on snow, there's the Katula micro spikes that we all like. And I have several pairs, and I'm always carrying one in my pack, a pair. And then poles, really good for stability, so you're not going to twist your knee or ankle as readily if you slip. It's good tools. And then in snow, an ice axe, and that's for steeper slopes. So you can get away with sort of mild to moderate slopes with on snow with poles and micro spikes and hiking boots. But if you're going to go into the steep, like the front faces of Seymour Mountain and that kind of thing, you're going to need something to self-arrest, and you're going to have to practice with it. And that's the ice axe and full-on crampons that they don't show a picture of. And then snowshoes. So I have kind of a love-hate relationship with snowshoes. I'll talk about the love part first. These are MSR Lightning Ascent. That's the pair that I carry. They're good snowshoes, especially good for the traction piece. So our typical snow isn't the fluffy champagne powder that you might get on the East Coast or other places. So you don't typically need a lot of flotation. In the odd days, and if we're lucky, we might get a couple days a year like that. You need more some flotation and good traction. So that's what I think these provide a good mixture of. But the hate part of a relationship with snowshoes for me is that they can be very dangerous on steep slopes. So as soon as the terrain gets icy or and steep, I don't want to be on my snowshoes. They can turn into toboggans. And Scott's teammate Mike Coyle years ago did a really good kind of essay on how you can hurt yourself on snowshoes, and talked about the physics behind trying to traverse a slope with small sort of mini crampons that are on the bottom of a snowshoe. So my advice is use them for mild to moderate slopes and soft snow. But if it's getting steep and icy, take them off your feet. Then you're switching to crampons and ice axe and/or just poles and micro spikes, but you're not traversing big slopes. And when it's hard, you don't really even need them. I see people going up the Seymour Trail when it's packed hard and icy with snowshoes on, and I guess it helps with the traction. That's why people are wearing them. But you can take them off, and it's a lot more fun. Just put on a pair of micro spikes, and you're good to go in those kind of conditions. And then the summer, again, I have this pair of Arc'teryx, little bit lighter hikers for hiking North Shore in the summer. I will use poles, and then in some instances, some good sturdy trail running shoes. This is an example of what not to wear, and we still see a lot of people with, I call them the urban sneakers, or the hike running shoes that you see people wearing. These aren't providing adequate ankle support. So if you're wearing these on the kind of terrain we just showed you, and almost it's everywhere in the North Shore in the summer, you're asking for trouble. Slips and falls in the snow, and twisted ankles more in the summer.
in general, if you're holding your boot, it should be difficult to flex it. If it's not difficult to flex it, like if it's really easy to just, if they're floppy, that's not a good shoe, regardless of what. Like you can even get ankle support shoes that go all the way up, but they have absolutely no support. They should be a little bit more difficult, so that when you go and you plant your foot into like one of those roots and stuff like that, it's not shaping itself around the root. It's trying to keep your foot relatively straight. There's a little bit of movement, of course, but it shouldn't be like a complete iron toe, but it should be much, much harder than you would expect from any of those shoes.
Good point. I think that's about a wrap for me. And again, thanks for having me on. And it's talking about one of my favorite subjects. So I'm happy to be here.
Well, we have a lot of questions. I'll do a couple of them slow, and then I'll do the rest of them fast. So let's do a slower one. Robin's talking about how, in general, we have a lot of resources for people, whether or not they're good or bad. We have bad resources too, like TikTok, for instance, that people can use to research trails. There's a person who goes onto the Vancouver hiking Reddit and finds that there may be some unreasonable expectations. This is a question for both you, Doug, and for Sandra. Are we trying to do things to try and get into those Reddit forums and stuff like that and help people out? Are we do we have plans to have like a team of people who are experts who do nothing but social media? And then what are other than like our Adventure Smart or BCSAR website and our North Shore Rescue website, what are other good resources that you would want to point people to? We'll start off with Doug on that one.
Great, thanks. So yeah, we're not going to that level into Reddit and having discussions. Unfortunately, we just don't have the time. Things that we are doing, we have a proactive education program that we do, and in partnership with Adventure Smart, they also do it. So we're going to hiking groups and providing the type of presentation I just gave is the type of things that our members are also doing. And what I would recommend is really researching the hike you want to do. Firstly, just the general things like having a good map of the trail you're going to do. And what I'd recommend for that is something like a good mapping app like Gaia is what I use on my phone. And having an extra battery for your phone, I might have that plugged. And so learn how to use a good mapping app like Gaia so that you have that. And then there's good resources like the book you're going to give away tonight is a really good resource for information generally about the trail. And then lastly, you do want to know about current conditions, and that is the knock of something like Instagram, where people see a beautiful photo of St. Mark's Trail on a summer day and it's clear and someone's in shorts and running shoes, but then you might be misguided if you're looking at that in April and there's 4 feet of snow there. So you need to get current conditions. And I'm a strong advocate for hiking groups to get that. There are some good, I belong to several on Facebook groups that have hiking, Southwest hiking in BC, for example. And then All Trails, I find, has become a very good resource for, it's a hiking app that has a pretty good map, and it has current conditions by hikers that have usually quite recently have hiked the trail and will give some information, are some good resources for that kind of information. And then lastly, just go prepared for everything. Since I've been on that team, my pack's gotten heavier, so it's good training weight. And so you no matter what kind of planning you do in the foreground, mountain conditions change on a dime. So being prepared for a lot more than what you've researched for. Be prepared for what if what if everything doesn't go right? So what if something goes wrong is a really good advice. So think about, well, if I twist my ankle, then I might be able to still hike out on my own, but I'll be late. So I need to phone my family to let them know I'm late. So I need some kind of communication. If I'm long on using my phone as a map, I'm going to need an extra battery. And then it might get dark, so I need a headlamp, and it might get cold, so I need a jacket. So if you start thinking in that kind of mindset, um, I think bring a bigger pack, and you'll be well on your way.
Sandra,
Yeah,
extra resources?
Yeah, I mirror all of that. Perfectly said, Doug. Thank you for that. I'm just putting in the chat there. There's a few extra pieces here. So we have BC Adventure Smart. That's the provincial reliable resources. You can find all of our information at the BC Search and Rescue Association's website under Outdoor Education. And under that banner, you'll find our Adventure Hub, which is like a phone book, if some of you remember what a phone book is, for outdoor listings of organizations, businesses, no matter where you want to go in the province to do anything outdoor rec related, you'll find stuff there from apps to camping to search and rescue information. The list is lengthy, guides. So BC Search and Rescue Association, Adventure Hub. We have events and webinars. We have a new Pack Like a Pro campaign. That's awesome. It's 10 really fun, creative videos. You saw one at the beginning of the session tonight. Those are fun, simple ways you can learn a few things in 1 minute about those essentials you should carry. Our trail specific safety videos we already shared. And then if you want to see everything we've ever created, I think we've recorded well over 100 different events and webinars. Head over to the BC Search and Rescue Association YouTube. That's where all of the recordings are. This one will be up later this week in the same spot. What I just threw into the chat also is the national website at adventuresmart.ca. So Adventure Smart went national in 2009 based on our provincial success. And that national website offers information for a plethora of activities. But what I plunked in there is our 5 programs. So we have 5 programs underneath the Adventure Smart umbrella for all ages, all activities, from snow safety to paddle smart for snowmobilers, kids program, Hug a Tree and Survive, super popular. And it all speaks to what Doug shared tonight, what Scott knows can eat, breathe, and sleep, and what we share with you on a regular basis is really mainly about the 3 T's and what to do in an emergency. I think all of those that Doug mentioned as well, we work closely with All Trails. Our Pack Like a Pro is on well over 100 of their trails just to align everything. We work closely with BC Parks. BC Parks can offer some specific safety information as well. We're working on a winter campaign specifically for the North Shore. So in the near future, you can go to Seymour Cypress or Grouse, and under their risk and safety pages, there'll be more information than there already is. So I think to sum up this little piece here is that there's a lot of us working together, and that includes tourism. Robin, thanks for joining us, by the way. It's great to see your name on the list. I work closely with Destination BC, and the fold in of what BC Adventure Smart shares, what they've done is they folded into organically now, which is wonderful, into their slide decks, into their presentations at big conferences. It's placed strategically. And also the destination marketing organizations are definitely getting on board. And I've just trained some in the Kootenay area as Adventure Smart educators. So they work for tourism. They're trained now as Adventure Smart educators officially, and they share that messaging in their community. So there's a few extra examples as well.
Marvelous. I'm going to do some quickies. You specifically mentioned a type of snowshoe. Did you want to give people what type of snowshoe that was, Doug?
It's called MSR, Lightning
yeah.
Ascent.
Lightning Ascent. Okay, MSR
Yeah.
Lightning Ascent. In general, like Tubbs makes great ones too.
Yeah.
I find for the areas around the North Shore, Southwest BC, you want ones that aren't just perfectly flat surfaces. You want ones that have teeth all the way around them.
Yeah.
And then teeth where your foot grabs in. So if it has teeth all the way around and where your foot grabs in, that's a good start. And then beyond that, you look for good ways of connecting to your boot and stuff like that.
For sure. And that's exactly what these Lightning Ascent have, and that's why I've chosen them. I also even went smaller. I actually bought a woman's pair because if you go to some sports shops, they might say, well, you need a certain size snowshoe for your weight. And that's the flotation piece that I talked about. That's if you really want to be in deep, powdery snow. which I'm not in a lot. So
We don't get
I'd
it, yeah.
rather have a smaller thing on my feet that's more controllable. I might get a little less location in deep snow, but to me, it's a better trade-off to have a smaller snowshoe than what's recommended for my weight, so that they're easier to travel on harder snow.
Absolutely. And it depends on where you are in the province.
Yeah.
If you're in the Kootenays, you might end up having that deep puffy snow, and being able to float
Yeah.
on top makes sense. But if you're in a place that has icy conditions, those teeth make it so much easier. We're going to talk about, there's some advice on when someone gets lost or hurt. We're going to play a video at the end of this that talks about the 3 T's and what to do if you get lost or hurt. So we're going to hold on to that thought.
Sure.
You'll see it at the end. I wanted to ask the question, what resource do you recommend to assess to determine how easy or difficult a trail is? We'll just focus this one on the North Shore for now, Doug, to help you. What's your favorite for the North Shore to tell you if a trail is easy or difficult?
Well, I think looking at something like All Trails again is a good start. And they typically rate them, or a guidebook like Stephen Hughes, he rates them as far as difficulty. And then I would look at the elevation gain. So a distance is less important to me than elevation gain. So traveling 5 kilometers on a straight trail, flat trail, is a lot different than if you've got 1,500 meters elevation. So being able to kind of, and it comes from experience, start slow, hike an easy trail, and then see, well, that was 200 meters elevation gain. And then when you want to go to hike another one, look at it again, and it might be 400. So it'll be twice as much elevation gain. And you can kind of get a good feeling for what you're up for. And then the type of terrain it traverses, and that's usually in the description for these trails. So if it's going over steep terrain, and that's going to be harder, obviously, to look at. So it's hard for me because I know them so well. I don't look at the ones for the North Shore, but
Sure.
the guidebooks and other resources like All Trails is what I would recommend.
Sandra, did you have anything to put in on that one?
No, based on time, I'm going to leave that great answer up to Doug. Sounded good. Thank you.
I did. Vicky had an interesting question. We might not have the answer for you right now, Vicky, but I am interested in case Sandra happens to know it. How often are SAR members injured during a rescue? I know
Great question.
Yeah.
Small injuries happen all the time. Like
Yeah.
You get scraped by bushes no
Yeah.
matter what. You'll always
Yeah.
have scrapes.
Yeah, coats with it's battle scars. They're almost
Yeah.
revered, right? But not that much overall. Like I've had some teammates with some relatively serious injuries that kind of lasted a year or two, but touch wood, I'd say it's relatively rare. Minor injuries are frequent. Serious injuries are not. And, we pride ourselves on the safety side of it. As a search manager, I learned early my biggest focus is actually not to bring the subject out as quickly as possible. It's keeping my teammates safe while they go in to try and get the subject. So our focus is really on our own safety first, and then our teammates, and then doing our job to get the subject out. So with that kind of mindset, we've been lucky that we don't see the serious injuries that often.
And I know people question why that is, and it's a very simple answer. If you don't put the safety of the searchers first, you have an additional victim that you have to take out. Now
Sure.
it's just that much harder.
Yeah.
So why, like, it doesn't make any sense for us to do that. I think we're pretty much at the end of the questions. Best way for community support search and rescue volunteers: reach out to your search and rescue team and ask them. Ask how you can support them. They might say financially. They might say volunteer. They might say, hey, could you put up flyers? I don't know. Reach out to them and ask them. Sandra, I think we have some things to give away.
We do have some things to give away. And the best way to support your search and rescue group as well is to join us in these webinars and learn more and prepare and think about those what ifs. We
Don't be
talk
the
a lot
next
about
call.
that as well. Don't be the next call. But remember, if you do need it, the number's 911 and there's no charge for rescue. So there's so many ways you can support search and rescue directly, indirectly in your community. You could become an Adventure Smart volunteer. There's so many ways. DM us, get in touch. You know how to find us or you wouldn't be here. So reach out and let us know how we can help you, help us, help you. Does that make sense? I hope so. Okay, let's move on and give away a couple things. Let's start off with the big Zoleo giveaway. Let's do that. And Scott, where should they answer the question, please? A friendly reminder.
Yes, please put in the chat. So put that in here. And we will not be able to tell you who answers because it usually comes in so fast I can't get into it. But we will reply to you the email that you registered for, and that's how we'll get back in touch with you to let you know that you won. So please put your answers in the chat.
Super. Everybody ready? Got their fingers warmed up? You both talked about so much, and it's funny, both of my questions relate to gear, which is interesting. I usually go different directions, but the first question is, if you're ready to go, what does Scott leave in his backpack all year round? And we talked about it a lot tonight. Oh, look at that. Flurry of microspikes coming in.
Microspikes it is.
I love it.
I'm a big fan. And I now have the gray ones. I miss my old red ones, but hey, that works.
Oh, that's great. It looks like most of you got that answer right, if not all. So we will pick the first one and we'll be in touch. We won't be long with that. Okay, the second one is for that wonderful book from Stephen Hughes. Been a great supporter of what we do. Really love working with Stephen. Doug talked about self-arrest. He explained self-arrest. What is the piece of gear that can allow you to self-arrest? Okay, here we go again. You guys were listening tonight. I love it. I don't see any sideways answers. Everybody's on track. I absolutely love it. And I love that you all stayed a little bit later. Wonderful. I
did want to thank everyone, by the way. There were more questions than we could get to. So we do really appreciate people who gave us questions. And there'll be more opportunities to ask questions of other experts in upcoming series and upcoming episode, because I think we have one coming in a couple weeks now.
We do. And I'm going to wrap up on that. So our next one's about the psychology of outdoor recreation and activities, outdoor adventures. I'm really looking forward to this one. It's what goes on up here. And I know Doug and Scott and I think a lot. I think we do think a lot about how do people make their decisions and why do they decide to do what they do? We talk a lot about practicalities and experiences and causations and gear, but this one's all about the mindset and decision making. So that's our next one. And we have a couple more coming up in the queue too. So on behalf of the 3,200 search and rescue volunteers in the province of BC who respond to 1,960 calls a year, who donate more than 500,000 hours a year to response, education, and training, thank you on behalf of all of them to you for joining us tonight. Please tell your friends to join us. We love having you here. And I'm sure you've learned a few things tonight. I know I did. Doug, thanks again. Hopefully to see you on the trails here in North Vancouver at some point. Love to see you again. Scott, thanks for all your expertise. My pleasure. And everyone stick around for the last few videos because it does answer one of those questions, and that's all about the stop. Reach out anytime, DM us, and we'll see you next time. Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
So, you want to be adventure smart.
Mm-hmm.
Good.
But what is being adventure smart?
Being adventure smart is really all about taking responsibility for your own safety and following the 3 T's.
Got it. What are the 3 T's?
What are the 3 T's? The 3 T's are the trifecta of outdoor safety: trip planning, training, and taking the essentials. The 3 T's can vary from person to person, activity to activity, and season to season. But here are some important ways to ensure you are prepared and safe on your next adventure. Trip planning. We could go on forever about this one. Trip planning is an essential step and one of the easiest ways we can stay safe on our adventures. This is something that should be done every time we head into the outdoors, whether for a few hours or multiple days. Trip planning can be broken down into 4 simple steps. Planning your travel route and navigation is about picking a trail or route based on its difficulty that's relative to your experience, ability, and the amount of time you have. Know your limits. Not all trails are created equal, so know the terrain and conditions. A 10-kilometer hike scrambling straight up a steep mountain is a lot different than a 10-kilometer stroll around a lake. Before you go anywhere, check the weather and keep checking it as things can change fast. This includes wind, precipitation, temperature, and sunset times. Finally, make sure you leave a comprehensive trip plan with a trusted contact. Keep in mind, this may not be your mom or dad or best buddy. Choose someone you can count on if you were to get into trouble. A comprehensive trip plan might be as simple as sending your trusted contact a text or email with key information about your activity, or using the Adventure Smart app, which allows you to enter a detailed trip plan. Training doesn't mean being an elite athlete or being queen of the mountain on Strava. Training is a continuous process of outdoor recreation. It's about developing the necessary skills and abilities to be safe. This might include working your way up to that big summit hike, taking a few courses to expand your wilderness and backcountry knowledge, navigation and route finding courses, or even learning more advanced skills like rescue and emergency training. You have planned and trained. Now make sure you take the essentials. Taking the essentials means packing everything you potentially need to stay warm, safe, and dry if an emergency unexpectedly arises. What if you rolled your ankle or got hurt? What if you got lost and had to spend the night outdoors? Take the time and be prepared to look after yourself. So that's it. Those are the 3 T's.
That's it.
But no matter how hard you train, how well you trip plan, and how much essential gear you bring, you may still find yourself in an emergency. And that's okay. The wilderness can be unpredictable. If you find yourself in an emergency, it's important to stop, think, observe, and plan. Use that essential gear you brought to stay warm, dry, and safe, and contact 911 on your emergency communication device. Remember, search and rescue in BC is free for everyone. Remember, safety is an outcome of good trip planning, training, and taking the essentials. It's your responsibility. So let's all do our part and be adventure smart.